This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. So we have a regular schedule this Sunday. Ian shared 11:15. Can you imagine? But don't get too comfortable. Next Sunday is visiting day. The following Sunday is Amsterdam. We're going to be overseas, so we'll have to figure out. But at least we'll enjoy our regular schedule when we have it. But today it's the summer, and people want to relax a little bit in the summer. So we're going to do something really out of the box. There's Daf Mem Beis is not such a simple amud. The executive summary is Abaye asked Rabbah the following question. Abaye asked Rabbah the following question. By the way, I just want to point out, you need to know who Abaye is. Abaye is the student of Rabbah, and Abaye may have been Rabbah's nephew. According to many, Abaye was the nephew of Rabbah. Abaye lost his father. Abaye was a Yasaim. Actually, Abaye, the Arizal says, stands for Asher B'cha Yerucham Yasaim. There's a pasuk in Tehillim. Asher B'cha Yerucham Yasaim. So Abaye was a Yasaim, and Rabbah was his Rebbe. Rabbah, according to many, was his uncle. And Rabbah's father's name was Nachmani. So Abaye's real name was Nachmani, but Rabbah didn't want to call him that, so because that was his father's name, so he called him Abaye. By the way, we just had on Lamed Tesamad Beis, the Gemara wanted to know, why doesn't a mefuta have tsar? So Abaye said, Amra li aim, my mother told me, you know what it feels like to be seduced? Kemaya chamim yaresha de karcha, like hot water on a bald head. Which mother? I thought he was a Yasaim. The answer is, this is Eishes Rabbah. Rabbah's wife raised Abaye. So when Abaye says in Shas, Amra li aim, this is something he says frequently. So it's referring to the wife of Rabbah. Be it as it may, Abaye asked Rabbah the following question. According to Reb Shimon, that it's not considered belonging to the father until the father receives it, and according to Reb Shimon, that if you deny knas, you're pater, because moed b'knas is pater. What would the halacha be if the guy said, you seduced my daughter, you raped my daughter, but not only that, we sued you in court and Bezdin was mechayiv you, and the guy denied that, and then he admitted he swore falsely. What would be if it originated as mamon? That was the question that Abaye asked Rabbah. Rabbah responded to his student, his nephew, his adopted son Abaye. He said, no, that is be'ikr mamon, and you're chayiv a carbon shvua. The Gemara asked that from a brisa, that it's Masha Reb Shimon darshans from the word v'kichesh, that even when you're sued, even after Hamad Badin, it's still considered knas. So that implies not like Rabbah said to Abaye. So to that the Gemara said back that Rabbah never meant that it's considered mamon legabe carbon shvua. Legabe carbon shvua, you're pater from v'kichesh, that it's a knas. When does Rabbah say it's mamon? It's mamon lahayrishay lebanav. Okay, so in other words, if a knas was sued in court, it is elevated to the status of money, not regarding bringing a carbon shvua, but to inherit it to one's sons. To which the Gemara challenges Rabbah. Right? The Gemara asks on Rabbah from our Mishnah, because the Mishnah implies that Reb Shimon holds that even if you were sued, you're not moyreshit lebanav. The Gemara says that this was such a bomb kasha. Rava said, "Hai milsa kashoy ba Rabba v'Rav Yosef esrin v'tartin shnen." Rabbah and Rav Yosef had this question for 22 years. Now it's interesting. What do you mean Rav Yosef? Rav Yosef was not the one who said the Chiddush. Rabbah said the Chiddush. Abaye didn't ask Rav Yosef. Abaye asked Rabbah. And Rabbah said that in his opinion, Knas, that is sued, becomes Mamain. And the Gemara said that's referring to being Moirish Labanov. And the question is, the Mishnah says not like that. And the Gemara says they were bothered by this for 22 years. V'lo yifruk, they didn't have an answer. Adi Yosef Rabbi Yosef Bereisha, until Rabbi Yosef became the Rosh Yeshiva. And Rabbi Yosef answered for Rabbah that even though suing makes it mama to pass it on to your son, but not for rape. By rape, there's exeres hakosov v'nasan ho'ish hashoichev ima lavi anara chamishim kasef. So again, Rabbah said a chiddush. They questioned Rabbah. Rabbah redefined what he said, that he's talking about lahorish labanav. They asked him, what about the Mishnah? Rabbah didn't know for 22 years, and not until Rabbi Yosef became the Rosh Yeshiva. Now everybody knows, and Rashi points out, that Rabbah served as Rosh Yeshiva for 22 years. And then Rabbah died. So think about what's happening over here. Rabbah said a chiddush. They asked on Rabbah from the Mishnah. For 22 years, Rabbah didn't know the answer to the question on his chiddush. And then when he died, and Rabbi Yosef, a different person, became the Rosh Yeshiva, on that day, Rabbi Yosef came up with an answer. So it's interesting. It's not even his chiddush to defend, but he's the one who defended it. So I just want to add one humble point, okay? Why was Rabbi Yosef zoiche to come up with this answer? Rabbah himself didn't know the answer. How could it be that Rabbi Yosef knew the answer? Yeah, so today in Shul, Rabbi Asi said, this morning in Shul we gave a shiur on Klalei Hashas, from the Mavai HaTalmud of Rabbi Shmuel HaNogid, that we know there's a principle that is articulated by Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen on the pasuk, Divrei Chachamim Kadar Vanois, Uchemas Merois Nituim Ba'alei Asufais, that the words of a Chacham are not engraved in the hearts of his Talmidim until the day they die. So possibly on the day Rabbah died, they finally understood what he meant. So therefore Rabbi Yosef, on the day that he died, he was able to explain an answer up for Rabbah. But I don't think that's enough. Number one, it says that on the day the Rebbe dies, the students understand what the Rebbe meant. But the Rebbe presumably understood the whole time what he meant. How could it be? The Rebbe didn't know and the student knew. If you look in Rashi, Rashi says, V'siyuhu min hashamayim lefarka, they assisted him from heaven to answer it, liois loy l'shem, that he should have a reputation. In other words, basically Rabbah was Rosh Yeshiva for 22 years, then Rabbah died, and Rabbi Yosef took over. So it's not easy taking over a new job. People are going to question you. So they gave him siyata d'shmaya on the day that he became the Rosh Yeshiva. He came up with a good answer. There's a story that's told. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says a story about his Rebbe, the Tefliker Rav. By the way, the Tefliker Rav, his name was Rav Shamshin Polonsky. It's a name that many are not familiar with, but it's worthwhile to be familiar. He was the Rebbe in Psak to Rav Shlomo Zalman, Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Avad Yosef, and many of the Paiskim of the last Dar. They had Shimush and Halacha from the Tefliker Rav. So the story goes that the Tefliker Rav, when he became a Rav in Europe, it was his first day on the job, and he was a young man. And the minhag in Europe was that the Rav would daven in the shul, and then the whole kehillah would walk the Rav home to shul. The Rav would make kiddush in his house. Everyone would say Amen, and that's how they would coronate the new Rav. So just after kiddush, a young boy comes in running into shul and says, my mother just had a baby boy. Should we make the Shalom Zachar tonight or next Friday night when the bris is? So, how are you supposed to know the answer to that question? So the Tefliker Rav said that he had just, he was told, you're becoming a Rav, you need to review Hilchos Pesach and all the Prima Gadims. So he had just reviewed all the Prima Gadims in Hilchos Pesach, and randomly in Hilchos Pesach, the Prima Gadim says that if a baby is born on a Friday night, you make the Shalom Zachar the first Friday night, not the second. And the Tefliker Rav said on the spot, you make it the first, make it now. And everyone was wowed, and that really consolidated his power. So you see that when Rabbanim take a position, they have a special siyata d'shmaya. By the way, we don't paskin that way. We paskin you make it the second Friday night. We paskin you make it that you don't do it the first Friday night. based on the Chamudei Daniel, who says that the Zohar says the reason for Shalom Zachar is you need to see Pnei Matranisa. Pnei Matranisa is the face of Shabbos. So if the baby's born Friday night, he missed the onset of Shabbos. The second Friday night, you have the onset of Shabbos. Okay, be it as it may, it seems like the reason why Rabbi Yosef got the answer is because he had Siyata Deshmaya the day he became the Rosh Yeshiva. So I want to share with you two Gemaras, and I think we'll have an added insight into why Rabbi Yosef was Zoicha to understand the Chiddush of Rabbah. Let me bring this up over here. How do I do this again? Okay. The Gemara in Hoyriyos and the Gemara in Brachos. Both of these Gemaras are the last page of the respective Masechta. The Gemara has a Shaila, the famous Shaila. Who's better, Sinai or Oikar Harim? Right? There's a great Baki in Montreal, Reb Pinchas Hirschsprung. He was a student of Chachmei Lublin. And I, when I was living in Queens, I was close with a very great Talmid Chacham, Rav Shlomo Warman, who is a Talmid of Rav Lazer Silver, and very close with many Gedolim. So he was also close with Rav Pinchas Hirschsprung. But I heard this from Rav Noach Isaac Olbaum, who was also close with Rav Hirschsprung. That what's the Gemara's question? The famous question, what's greater, Sinai or Oikar Harim? Sinai is someone who masters a lot of material. Oikar Harim is someone who's very sharp. Right? Sinai is someone who knows the whole corpus of material, and Oikar Harim is someone who is a big charif. He's very sharp. So the Gemara wants to know here. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Pligi ba Reb Shimon Gamliel v'Rabbanan. Chad Amar Sinai Adif. One opinion is Sinai is greater. V'chad Amar Oikar Harim Adif. And one opinion is better to be Oikar Harim, meaning the Shilas is better to be a Baki, master a lot of material, or someone who is not a master of a lot of material, but he has such sharp analysis that he could uproot a mountain. So Rav Hirschsprung humorously asked, I don't understand, what's the Shaila? The Gemara concludes, by the way, Sinai Adif, right? The Gemara says Sinai. So why would Sinai be Adif? Why would it be better to know a lot of material? Sinai is a mountain. So the Oikar Harim should come along, and he could be Oikar Sinai. He could uproot Sinai. How could you say Sinai is greater, but Oikar Harim is someone who could uproot the mountain? So let the Oikar Harim come and uproot Sinai. So he humorously said, yeah, he would, but he doesn't know where he is. He can't find him. He doesn't know that much information. But anyway, that's the Gemara Shaila. What's better, Sinai or Oikar Harim? Rabbi Yosef Sinai. Okay, so Rabbi Yosef was a master of a lot of material. Rabbah was Oikar Harim. By the way, we're going to see on Daf Mem Gimel. I did Mem Gimel Amud Aleph on Friday. Sorry. The Gemara says over the Kasha of Rabbi Yosef, and then the Gemara says, there's a simple answer. We could say we're talking about a certain scenario. So then the Gemara says, this is very uncharacteristic. Usually if you have a question, you have an answer. The Gemara says back, Rabbi Yosef was a Gavra Rabbah. You don't think he knew the answer we gave? He obviously held our answer was wrong. How often do you find the Gemara has a kasha, the Gemara gives an answer, and everyone says, well, the person who asked the question, he probably thought about this answer, but he didn't like it. But that's what the Gemara says about Rabbi Yosef. Okay? So Rabbi Yosef was a Sinai. Rabbah was an Oikar Harim. Sholchu lekaman, they sent to Eretz Yisrael, Ezer mehem koidem. Because basically they had to appoint a new Rosh Yeshiva. The Rosh Yeshiva before was Rabbi Yehuda bar Yecheskel. Rabbi Yehuda bar Yecheskel died, and now the question is, who should we appoint as a Rosh Yeshiva? Sholchu lehu, they sent from Eretz Yisrael, Sinai Adif. The Amar Mar, Hakol Tzrichin L'Marechatia, everyone needs the master of wheat. Basically, everybody needs someone who knows the material. Va'afilu hachi lo kibel Rabbi Yosef alei. Rabbi Yosef did not accept the job. Now, if you would be learning this Gemara, you would think that Rabbi Yosef did not accept the job out of humility. And the Gemara doesn't add any information over here. Okay? That's the Gemara. So, Malach Rabba Esin V'tartin Shnin. Rabba ruled for 22 years. V'hadar Malach Rabbi Yosef. Then Rabbi Yosef ruled. V'chol Shani de Malach. I always say the reason why the Gemara talks about the Machlokes Sinai and Oikar Harim at the end of Hoyriyos and Brachos is because, only a Sinai is going to get up to the end of the Masechta. The Oiker Harim is still on Daf Gimel. So the psak that Sinai Adif is going to be at the end of the Masechta. It's a good way to remember it. Anyway, the Gemara says, V'choshani de Malach Rabba, all the years Rabba ruled, Rav Yosef afilu umna lebeisei lechalaf. Rav Yosef didn't even call a blood letter to his house. Either that means Rav Yosef lowered himself to Rabba. He wouldn't call the blood letter to Rabba's house, but rather, Rabbi Yosef wouldn't call the blood letter to his own house. He would let the blood letter go to Rabba's house, and he would go to Rabba's house to be treated. Another girsa is, all the years Rabba ruled, there was no time for Rav Yosef to have blood led because he was learning from Rabba. Next generation, Abaye, V'Rava, V'Rab Zera, V'Rabba Bar Masna have a Yosfi. They were sitting. V'Avetzri Charesha, they needed a Rosh Yeshiva. So they said anyone who could say a teaching and won't get shlugged up, he will be the Rosh Yeshiva. They were all shlugged up, except for Abaye. Abaye wasn't shlugged up. Rabba saw, they changed gears, so Rava saw Abaye, that Abaye looked like he was a head taller than everyone else. After, he was the only one who gave his share, nobody said anything. So Rava said, okay, your turn, you be the Rosh Yeshiva. Okay, so we have Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. Just a little bit about them. A few times already this year, I spoke about Rabba. First of all, we spoke about him Shabbos Haggadah. We also spoke about him Parshas Ekev. Rabba always started Shiur with a joke, right? That's the Gemara in Brachos. That Rabba always started with Milsa de B'dichusa. We suggested it's because Rabba lived a very difficult life. First of all, everyone hated him. The Gemara says everyone in Pumpadisa hated Rabba. The Gemara even says he must have been born under the influence of Mars because he was very strict, and he always had to go to Levayas. Many people of his family passed away. He lived a very tragic life. And we said that's the reason why he was always joking around. He also lived a very short life. I believe, our Girsa in the Gemara, it says that Rabba lived 40 years. According to our Girsa, Rabba lived 40 years. Rav Isaac Halevi Rabinowitz says that our Gemara is Ta Sofer, and it should say 60. But be it as it may, Rabba was a Kohen. He was a descendant of the Beis Eli, as was Rabbi Yosef. Okay? They were both from the Beis Eli. That's why Rabbi Yosef, by the way, the Sinai, now it's interesting, two things happened to Rabbi Yosef. Number one, Rabbi Yosef became blind. So he would say, if anybody says that if someone's blind, they're chayiv in mitzvahs, he'll make a big suda. Rabbi Yosef also began to forget his learning. But Rabbi Yosef was the Sinai, and Rabbi Yosef took over after 22 years. So from the Gemara in Brachos, from the Gemara in Horayos, it would seem that out of humility, Rabbi Yosef didn't want to be Rosh Yeshiva first, even though they paskined that he was greater. But we have the exact same Gemara in Brachos, and the Gemara in Brachos has one detail. One second. Do we have the whole... What happened here? Oh, here. The Gemara says a different story here. Amar Rabbi this is Daf Samach Daled Amar Aleph in Brachos. Amar Rabbi Avin Halevi. Kol hadoichek es hasha. Anyone who pushes away the hour, sha doich kasai. The hour pushes him. V'chol hanidcha mivnei hasha. Anyone who gives way, sha nidchas mipanav. The hour gives way before him. Meaning basically anyone who pushes the envelope, he sort of pushes himself into position runs away. Someone who defers, it comes after him. And the Gemara brings a raya from Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is Sinai, Rabba is Oiker Harim. It's Richa Lahu Shaita. They needed a Rosh Yeshiva. Now that's one detail the Gemara in Horayos doesn't say. Shalchu lahasam. So they sent Eretz Yisrael, Sinai va'Oikar Harim, Ezmem Koidam, Shalchu lahu Sinai Koidam, Shakol Tzrich l'Marichatya. Afal Pikein loy kibel alav Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef didn't accept the job. Why? The Gemara in Brachos adds, the Amri le Kaldoi. Because the stargazers told him, Malchus Tartin Shnin, you're only going to be Rosh Yeshiva for 2 years. So Rabbi Yosef figured if he's only going to be Rosh Yeshiva for 2 years, he might, why? Because he's not going to survive. So he figured he might as well give Rabbah the job so he'll prolong his life. This way, if Rabbah's Rosh Yeshiva first, Rabbi Yosef will take over. Malach Rabbah Esrin V'Tartin Shnin. Rabbah ruled 22 years. Malach Rabbi Yosef Tartin Shnin Upalga. Then Rabbi Yosef ruled 2.5 years. So basically, Rabbi Yosef deferred the Rosh Yeshiva shaft, but it worked out for him because he prolonged his life for 22 years. The bottom line is that this Gemara in Brachos adds a detail that's not in Hoyriyos. Namely, it wasn't just out of humility that he stepped aside. By the way, Rabbi Yosef was the one who said, Ilav hayoima kama yoisi ika b'shuka. If not for this day, I would be just an ordinary Joe. So he was a very humble man, but this was not the only reason he deferred the Rosh Yeshiva shaft. He deferred because he knew that his life was on the line. So I would just say one very simple thing. They paskin that Rabbi Yosef was greater. Why? Because he's a Sinai. But Lamaisa, Rabbah took the job. And Rabbah was better in learning. In other words, Rabbah was a Charif, Rabbah was a Oiker Harem. The question in our Sugya in Ksubis was a very powerful question. Rabbah said a Chidush that if you sue someone for Knas, it becomes Mamain. The problem is our Mishnah says clearly that until the money goes to the father, it's not considered Mamain. And Rabbah did not know the answer for 22 years. When Rabbi Yosef was at the helm, and his first day as Rosh Yeshiva, I would say like this. Nobody ever questioned Rabbi Yosef's Bekiyas. That was that was known from the beginning. In fact, they held he should get the job from the beginning. The only question was whether he would be able to stack up to Rabbah in his sharpness of learning. So on the day he gets the job, this very analytic question of how is Rabbah going to wiggle out of saying a chidush that when you sue somebody for money, for knas, it becomes money, and yet the Mishnah says that it's not the father's until he collects it. That requires not bekiyos, it requires the skill of Oiker Harem. So Dafka on the day that Rabbi Yosef became the Rosh Yeshiva, where the talent in question is he enough of an Oiker Harem? That day he has siyata d'shmaya, like Rashi says, that he should gain a reputation, not just as a great person, but specifically in the area of being Oiker Harem, because that was the one thing, that was, so to speak, that wasn't his strength. That was Rabbah's strength. And the Hashkacha had it that Rabbah did not know, he was not able to be Oiker this har. And the moment Rabbi Yosef stepped into the job and he had to assume a new mantle of leadership, all of a sudden, min hashamayim, they gave him the skill for this question of being able to be Oiker Harem. Alright, that was just the thought I had on this Gemara. Okay. You're muted if anyone wants to say something, yeah.
Maybe you could say, according to my brachos, why Rabbi Yosef wasn't Makis Dam is he didn't need to. He knew he was going to live. He had to become Rosh Yeshiva for 2 years.
Yeah. I hear. You want to say that's why he didn't have to bloodlet. Yeah, if you said that it's going on Rabbi Yosef, right? If it's going on...
yes.
It's going on or you could say, right, Rabbah also knew Rabbi Yosef was going to rule, so he didn't have to, yeah. Very good. Okay, everyone, have a good day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Likely, we're gonna have. I did Mem Gimel on Friday. I would like to do 3 this week, because next week I won't be able to give Shiur. So likely Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So if you're up for Mem Gimel Amud Beis tonight, I think that's the plan. Okay. Hatzlacha. Good night. Good day, everyone. Be well. Bye bye.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.